The Adventure of the Speckled Bend Detailed Summary. The story begins with Dr. John Watson, who tells the readers that he has spent the last 8 years helping his close friend, the famous detective Sherlock Holmes, solve many interesting cases. Watson says that some of these cases were sad, some were funny, and many were strange, but none of them were ordinary. Holmes never liked solving simple crimes just to earn money. He accepted only those cases that were difficult, mysterious, unusual, or almost impossible to solve. Out of all the cases Watson has seen, he believes that the mystery of the Speckled Bend is one of the strangest and most unforgettable. The events happened many years ago when Watson and Holmes were living together as unmarried friends at 221B Baker Street in London. Watson explains that he had promised someone to keep this story secret, so he could not tell it earlier. However, after the death of the lady who asked him to keep the secret, he decided to reveal the true story because many people were spreading false rumors about the death of Dr. Grimesby Roylott. One morning in April 1883, Watson was sleeping peacefully when he suddenly woke up and saw Sherlock Holmes standing beside his bed. Holmes was already fully dressed, which surprised Watson because Holmes usually woke up late in the morning. Watson looked at the clock and saw that it was only subah ke siwa 7 baje am. Holmes apologized for waking him so early and explained that a young woman had come to see him. She was extremely frightened and insisted on meeting Holmes immediately. Holmes believed that when a young lady travels across London so early in the morning, there must be a very serious problem. Since Watson always enjoyed watching Holmes solve difficult mysteries, Holmes invited him to join the investigation. Watson immediately agreed because helping Holmes solve mysteries was one of the greatest pleasures of his life. Watson always admired Holmes because Holmes could solve complicated mysteries through careful observation and logical thinking instead of guessing. Both men quickly went downstairs to the sitting room. There they found a lady dressed completely in black clothes with a thick black veil covering her face. Holmes politely introduced himself and introduced Watson as his trusted friend and partner. Holmes assured the lady that she could speak freely because Watson knew all of Holmes' cases and could be trusted completely. Holmes noticed that the woman was shaking badly. He asked her to sit near the warm fireplace and offered her a cup of hot coffee. However, the lady quietly replied that she was not shivering because of the cold weather. She said that she was trembling because of fear and terror. She slowly lifted her veil, and Watson immediately noticed how frightened she looked. Her face was pale, her eyes were full of fear, and she looked tired and exhausted. Although she was only about 30 years old, much of her hair had already turned gray because of the stress and suffering she had experienced. Holmes looked at her carefully with his sharp eyes, observing every small detail. Holmes then surprised the lady by telling her that she had traveled by train that very morning. The woman was shocked because she had never told him anything about her journey. Holmes smiled and explained that he had seen half of a written railway ticket inside the palm of her left glove. He also noticed fresh mud on the left sleeve of her jacket. Holmes explained that only a dog cart could throw mud onto a passenger in that particular way, and only if the passenger sat on the left side beside the driver. Since the mud was still fresh, Holmes knew that she had traveled very early that morning before reaching the railway station. The lady admitted that Holmes was completely correct. She explained that she had left her home before 6 o'clock in the morning, traveled by dog cart to Leatherhead station, and then caught the first train to Waterloo station in London. She confessed that she could no longer bear the fear under which she had been living. She felt that she would lose her mind if nobody helped her. She said she had almost no one to depend upon except one person who cared for her but was too weak to protect her. She had heard about Sherlock Holmes through Mrs. Farintosh, a woman whose difficult problem Holmes had solved in the past. She begged Holmes to help her. She apologized because she could not pay him immediately, but she promised that after her marriage, which would take place in about a month or 6 weeks, she would have control of her own money and would happily reward him for his services. Holmes kindly replied that he did not solve mysteries simply to earn money because his profession itself gave him great satisfaction. He remembered helping Mrs. Farintosh in the famous Opal Tiara case. Holmes assured the lady that he would give the same attention to her case. He told her not to worry about payment and simply asked her to tell the complete story without hiding any details. The lady thanked Holmes and explained that the most frightening part of her situation was that her fears were based only on small events that other people considered unimportant. Whenever she spoke about her fears, people believed that she was only a nervous woman imagining things. However, she had heard that Sherlock Holmes understood the evil hidden inside human beings better than anyone else, so she hoped that he would believe her and guide her through the danger surrounding her. The lady finally introduced herself as Helen Stoner. She explained that she lived with her stepfather, Drive Grimesby Roylott, who belonged to the famous Roylott family of Stoke Moran in Surrey. Holmes immediately recognized the Roylott family name because it had once been one of the oldest and richest families in England. Helen explained that many generations ago the Roylotts owned huge estates across Surrey, Berkshire, and Hampshire. Unfortunately, several generations of wasteful and careless heirs spent all the family wealth. One of them became a gambler and lost almost everything. Eventually, only a few acres of land and the old family house remained, both covered by heavy debts. The Roylotts became poor even though they belonged to a noble family. Helen continued by telling Holmes about her stepfather's life. Since the family had become poor, Drive Roylott decided to become a doctor. He borrowed money from a relative, studied medicine, and then traveled to Calcutta, India, where he became a very successful doctor because of his intelligence and strong personality. However, his violent temper destroyed his successful life. One day, after several robberies took place in his house, he became so angry that he beat his Indian butler to death. Although he almost received the death sentence, he was instead sent to prison for many years. After completing his punishment, he returned to England as a bitter, angry, and disappointed man. While living in India, Drive Roylott had married Helen's mother, Mrs. Stoner, who was the widow of Major General Stoner. Helen and her twin sister Julia Stoner were only 2 years old when their mother married Drive Roylott. Helen's mother owned a large yearly income of £1,000, which was a great amount of money in those days. According to her will, Drive Roylott could use the money while the daughters remained unmarried. However, whenever either daughter married, she would receive a yearly share of the money herself. Soon after the family returned to England, Helen's mother died in a railway accident near Crewe. Dr. Roylott then abandoned his plans to work as a doctor in London and took the two girls to live in the old Roylott house at Stoke Moran. At first, everything seemed peaceful because they had enough money for a comfortable life. Sadly, Helen explained that a terrible change soon came over Drive Roylott. Instead of making friends with the neighbors, he shut himself inside the old house and became extremely violent. Helen believed that madness and uncontrolled anger run in the Roylott family and that living for many years in the hot climate of India had made his temper even worse. He frequently fought with people, became involved in violent arguments, and was taken to court several times. Everyone in the village became frightened of him because he was an enormous, powerful man whose anger nobody could control. Only a week before Helen visited Holmes' Drive, Roylott had become so furious that he threw the village blacksmith over a bridge into a stream. Helen herself had to pay money to prevent another public scandal. Dr. Roylott had almost no friends except wandering gypsies, whom he allowed to camp freely on his land. Sometimes he even stayed with them in their tents for several weeks. Another strange habit was his love for dangerous Indian animals. He kept a cheetah and a baboon, both of which wandered freely around the estate. The villagers feared these wild animals almost as much as they feared Drive. Roylott himself. Because of his violent behavior, no servants stayed in the house for long. As a result, Helen and Julia had to do all the cooking, cleaning, and household work themselves. Helen sadly mentioned that Julia had been only 30 years old when she died, yet her hair had already started turning grey because of the difficult life she had lived. Helen's own hair had also begun turning grey for the same reason. Holmes gently asked whether Julia was dead. Helen sadly replied that Julia had died exactly 2 years earlier, and it was the mystery of her death that had brought her to Baker Street. Helen explained that because of their lonely life, she and Julia rarely met young people of their own age. However, they sometimes visited their aunt, Miss Honoria Westphale, who lived near Harrow. During one Christmas visit, Julia met a retired army officer, a half-pay major of Marines, and the two soon became engaged. Surprisingly, Roylott did not object to the marriage. Everything seemed normal, but only 2 weeks before the wedding, Julia died in a mysterious and terrifying way, leaving Helen completely alone. Holmes now listened even more carefully and asked Helen to describe every detail. Helen explained that the old manor house was very large, but only one wing was still being used. There were 3 bedrooms on the ground floor. The first belonged to Dr. Roylott, the second belonged to Julia, and the third belonged to Helen. The rooms did not connect with one another, but all 3 opened into the same corridor. The windows of all 3 bedrooms looked out onto the lawn. Helen then described the terrible night of Julia's death. That evening Roylott went into his bedroom early, although he remained awake smoking his strong Indian cigars. The smell of the cigars disturbed Julia, so she came into Helen's bedroom. The two sisters sat together happily talking about Julia's coming marriage. At about 11 o'clock, Julia prepared to return to her own room. Before leaving, she suddenly stopped and asked Helen whether she had ever heard a soft whistle during the night, especially around 3 o'clock in the morning. Helen replied that she had never heard such a sound. Julia explained that for several nights she had been awakened by a low, clear whistle, but she could not discover where it came from. She wondered whether it came from outside on the lawn or from another room. Helen guessed that perhaps the gypsies camping nearby were making the sound. Julia accepted the explanation, smiled, returned to her bedroom, and locked the door behind her. Holmes asked why the sisters always locked their bedroom doors. Helen explained that because Roylott allowed his dangerous cheetah and baboon to roam freely around the house at night, they never felt safe unless they locked themselves inside their rooms. Helen then described the terrifying events of that night. She could not fall asleep because she felt that something terrible was about to happen. Since she and Julia were twins, she believed they shared a special emotional connection. Outside, a violent storm was raging. The wind howled loudly, rain beat against the windows, and the old house creaked in the storm. Suddenly, Helen heard her sister scream in absolute terror. She jumped out of bed, wrapped a shawl around herself, and rushed into the corridor. As she opened her own bedroom door, she believed she heard the same low whistle Julia had described, followed a few moments later by the sound of metal clanging, as though a heavy piece of metal had fallen. Julia's bedroom door slowly opened, and Helen saw her sister standing there. Julia's face was white with terror. Her hands reached forward helplessly, and her body swayed as if she could barely stand. Helen caught her, but Julia collapsed onto the floor in terrible pain. Her whole body shook with violent convulsions. Suddenly, Julia cried out words that Helen would never forget. "Oh, my God! Helen!" It was the bend. The speckled bend. She tried to point to a drive. Roylott's room as though she wanted to explain something more, but another violent fit stopped her from speaking. Helen immediately called for Dr. Roylott. He rushed into the corridor wearing his dressing gown. He tried to save Julia by giving her brandy and sending for the village doctor, but nothing could save her. Julia slowly died without ever regaining consciousness. Holmes carefully questioned Helen about the strange whistle and the metallic sound. Helen admitted that she believed she had heard both, although the loud storm might possibly have confused her. Holmes then asked whether Julia had been dressed. Helen replied that Julia had been wearing only her night dress. The investigators had found a burnt match in one hand and a matchbox in the other. Holmes immediately realized that Julia had struck a match after hearing something in the darkness because she wanted to see what had frightened her. Holmes considered this an extremely important clue. Helen explained that the official investigation could discover no cause of Julia's death. The county coroner carefully examined everything because Drive Roylott already had a terrible reputation. The bedroom door had been locked from the inside. The windows were protected by strong shutters with iron bars. The walls were solid. The floor contained no hidden openings. The chimney was blocked with thick iron bars. Therefore, nobody could have entered or escaped from the room. The doctors found no wounds on Julia's body and discovered no poison in her system. The mystery remained completely unsolved. Finally, Holmes asked Helen what she herself believed. Helen replied that perhaps Julia had died from extreme fear and nervous shock, although she could not imagine what had frightened her so badly. Holmes then asked whether the gypsies had been camping nearby at that time. Helen answered yes because they almost always stayed on the estate. Holmes asked what she thought Julia meant by the words, the speckled bend. Helen replied that sometimes she believed Julia had spoken meaningless words because she was dying, while at other times she wondered whether Julia had been referring to the gypsies, many of whom wore spotted or speckled handkerchiefs around their heads. However, she admitted that she had never been able to understand the true meaning of Julia's final words. Holmes listened silently to every detail, realizing that the strange mystery contained many unusual clues and that solving it would require all of his intelligence and powers of observation. After listening carefully to Helen Stoner's story about the mysterious death of her twin sister Julia, Sherlock Holmes remained thoughtful and serious. He slowly shook his head because he knew that the mystery was much more difficult than it first appeared. Holmes said that they were dealing with a very deep and complicated case. He asked Helen to continue her story and not leave out even the smallest detail because sometimes tiny details become the most important clues in solving a mystery. Helen continued by explaining what had happened during the 2 years after Julia's death. She said that since losing her sister, she had lived an even lonelier life at Stoke Moran. She had no close companion left, and living with her violent stepfather made her life miserable. However, about a month before coming to Holmes, something happy happened. A man named Percy Armitage, the second son of Mr. Armitage of Crane Water near Reading, asked Helen to marry him. Helen gladly accepted his proposal. Surprisingly, just as he had done when Julia became engaged, Drive. Roylott did not oppose Helen's marriage either. Their wedding was planned for the coming spring, and Helen hoped that she would finally escape from the unhappy life at Stoke Moran. Helen then explained the frightening incident that made her seek Holmes' help immediately. 2 days earlier, some repairs had begun on the west wing of the old house. Workmen broke through the wall of Helen's bedroom, making it impossible for her to sleep there. As a result, she was forced to move into Julia's old bedroom, the same room where Julia had died 2 years before. Helen had to sleep in the same bed her sister had used on the night of her mysterious death. While lying awake, she kept thinking about Julia's terrible end. Suddenly, in the middle of the night, she heard the same low, clear whistle that Julia had heard before she died. Helen became terrified. She quickly lit a lamp and searched the room, but there was no one there and nothing unusual could be seen. She was too frightened to return to bed. As soon as daylight came, she dressed, quietly left the house, hired a dog cart from the nearby Crown Inn, traveled to Leatherhead station, caught the first train to London, and came directly to Sherlock Holmes for help and advice. Holmes praised Helen for making such a wise decision. However, he suspected that she was still hiding something. Holmes looked carefully at Helen and calmly said that she had not told them everything because she was trying to protect her stepfather. Helen looked surprised and asked what he meant. Without saying another word, Holmes gently lifted the black lace covering Helen's wrist. Watson immediately saw 5 dark bruises on her white skin. The marks clearly showed the shape of 4 fingers and a thumb. Holmes quietly said that someone had treated her very cruelly. Helen became embarrassed, covered her injured wrist, and admitted that Dr. Roylott had caused the bruises. She tried to defend him by saying that he was a very strong man and sometimes did not realize how much force he used. Holmes understood that Helen was still trying to protect her stepfather even though he had hurt her. For several minutes Holmes sat silently, resting his chin on his hands while staring into the fire. Finally, he said that the case was becoming even more serious. He explained that many important questions still remained unanswered, but they had no time to waste. Holmes asked Helen whether they could visit Stoke Moran that very day and inspect the rooms without Drive. Roylott knowing about it, Helen happily replied that her stepfather had gone to London on important business and would probably remain away until evening. She explained that only an old and foolish housekeeper would be in the house, and she could easily keep the housekeeper busy while Holmes and Watson examined everything. Holmes immediately decided that he and Watson would travel to Stoke Moran that afternoon. Helen said she also had some work to do in London but would return home on the noon train so that she could meet them later. Holmes invited her to stay for breakfast, but she politely refused. She thanked Holmes warmly, saying that simply sharing her troubles with him had already made her feel much better. She then covered her face with her black veil once again and quietly left Baker Street. After Helen had gone, Holmes asked Watson what he thought about the strange case. Watson replied that everything seemed dark, frightening, and mysterious. Holmes agreed. Watson pointed out that if Helen was telling the truth, then Julia had been completely alone inside a locked room when she died. Holmes then asked what could explain the mysterious whistle and Julia's dying words about the speckled band. Watson admitted that he had no idea. Holmes began thinking aloud. He pointed out several important facts. The strange whistles occurred only at night. A group of gypsies lived on Dr. Roylott's land and were friendly with him. Dr. Roylott had a financial reason to stop his stepdaughters from marrying. Julia's final words included the word bend, which might possibly refer to the gypsies. Holmes also thought that the metallic sound Helen heard might have been caused by one of the heavy window bars falling back into place. Although Holmes admitted that this theory still had many weaknesses, he believed it was worth investigating further. He explained that only by visiting Stoke Moran and examining everything themselves could they discover whether the theory was correct or completely wrong. Before Holmes could continue speaking, something unexpected happened. Their sitting room door suddenly burst open with great force. A huge, frightening man entered the room. He was so tall that his hat almost touched the top of the doorway. His body was extremely broad and powerful. His face was deeply wrinkled and dark from years spent in the hot Indian sun. His eyes were red and fierce, and his long thin nose made him look like a dangerous bird of prey. He wore strange clothes that were partly like a doctor's outfit and partly like a country gentleman's hunting clothes. In his hand he carried a heavy hunting whip. The men demanded to know which one of them was Sherlock Holmes. Holmes calmly introduced himself. The visitor announced that he was Dr. Grimesby Roylott of Stoke Moran. Holmes politely invited him to sit down, but Roylott angrily refused. He shouted that his stepdaughter had visited Holmes that morning and demanded to know what she had told him. Instead of answering directly, Holmes calmly commented that the weather seemed rather cold for the season. This made Roylott even angrier. He shouted his question again, but Holmes ignored him and spoke about how well the spring flowers would probably bloom. Roylott became furious. He called Holmes insulting names such as meddler, busybody, and Scotland Yard Jack in office. Holmes simply smiled and laughed because he refused to lose his temper. He even politely asked Roylott to close the door when leaving because a cold draft was entering the room. Dr. Roylott warned Holmes not to interfere in his affairs. He declared that he was a dangerous man. To prove his enormous strength, he suddenly picked up the heavy steel fireplace poker with his bare hands and bent it into a curve as though it were made of soft metal. Throwing the twisted poker back into the fireplace, he warned Holmes to stay out of his way before storming angrily out of the room. As soon as Roylott had gone, Holmes laughed quietly. He admitted that Roylott was certainly an unusually strong man. However, Holmes confidently stated that although he was not as large, he was by no means weak. To demonstrate this, Holmes picked up the bent poker and, using all his strength, straightened it back into its original shape. Watson was impressed. Holmes remarked that Dr. Roylott had made a mistake by threatening them because now the investigation had become even more important. Holmes also worried that Helen might suffer because Roylott had followed her to London. Holmes then decided to eat breakfast before continuing the investigation. After breakfast, he planned to visit Doctors' Commons, where legal documents such as wills were kept. Around 1 o'clock, Holmes returned carrying a blue sheet of paper covered with figures and calculations. He explained that he had carefully examined the will left by Helen's late mother. Holmes had calculated the family's finances and discovered something very important. When Mrs. Stoner died, her property produced nearly £1,000 a year. However, because farming income had fallen, the estate now earned only about £750 a year. According to the will, each daughter would receive £250 a year after marriage. Holmes quickly realized the importance of this information. If both Helen and Julia married, Roylott would lose £500 each year and would be left with very little money to live on. Even if only one daughter married, his income would be greatly reduced. Holmes now understood that Dr. Roylott had a very powerful financial reason for preventing his stepdaughters from getting married. This discovery strengthened Holmes' suspicion that Roylott might somehow be connected to Julia's mysterious death. Holmes decided there was no more time to waste because Roylott already knew they were investigating him. Holmes asked Watson to place his revolver in his pocket because a man strong enough to bend a steel poker could become dangerous. Holmes joked that a revolver and a toothbrush were the only things they needed for their journey. The two men hired a cab and traveled to Waterloo Station, where they caught a train to Leatherhead. After arriving there, they hired a horse trap and traveled several miles through the beautiful countryside of Surrey. It was a lovely spring day with sunshine, fresh green leaves growing on the trees, soft clouds in the sky, and the pleasant smell of wet earth. Watson noticed the strange contrast between the peaceful beauty of nature and the dark mystery they were traveling to solve. During the journey, Holmes remained silent, sitting deep in thought as he carefully considered every clue. Suddenly, Holmes pointed towards a large old mansion standing among the trees. Their driver told them that it was Stoke Moran, the home of Dr. Roylott. Holmes noticed that some building work was taking place there. The driver also pointed out Helen Stoner walking nearby across the fields. Holmes decided it would be better to approach the house by walking through the fields instead of arriving directly by carriage. He also explained to Watson that he wanted the driver to think they were visiting the house as architects or builders, which would reduce suspicion and prevent gossip. Helen hurried towards them with a happy smile because she had been anxiously waiting for their arrival. She told them that everything had gone according to plan because Roylott had traveled to London and would probably not return before evening. Holmes informed Helen that they had already met her stepfather that morning. He briefly described Roylott's threatening visit to Baker Street. Helen became pale with fear when she realized that her stepfather had secretly followed her to London. Holmes comforted her by saying that Roylott should now be careful because someone even cleverer than himself was watching him. Holmes instructed Helen to lock herself safely inside her room that night, and if Roylott became violent, Holmes promised to take her immediately to her aunt's house at Harrow. Holmes then asked Helen to take them directly to the rooms where Julia had died. Watson carefully described the old house. Stoke Moran was built from grey stone covered with moss and looked extremely old. The house had a large central section with two curved wings that looked like the claws of a crab. One wing was almost ruined, with broken windows and a partly collapsed roof. The central section was also old, but the right-hand wing looked newer and was clearly still being lived in because smoke was rising from the chimneys. Holmes noticed that some scaffolding had been placed against one wall where the repairs were supposedly taking place. However, there were no workmen present, making Holmes suspicious. Holmes first carefully examined the outside of the three-bedroom windows. Helen pointed out which room had belonged to Dr. Roylott, which had belonged to Julia, and which had originally been hers. She also explained that because of the repairs she was now sleeping in Julia's room. Holmes looked closely at the damaged wall and commented that the repairs did not appear necessary. Helen admitted that she also believed the repairs were only an excuse to force her into Julia's bedroom. Holmes found this extremely suspicious. He asked Helen to close and bolt the shutters from inside while he examined them from outside. Holmes tried every possible method to force the shutters open, but they remained completely secure. He carefully inspected the hinges and discovered that they were made of strong iron fixed solidly into the stone walls. Holmes admitted that this made the mystery even more difficult because nobody could possibly enter through the windows. The three then entered the house through a side door into the narrow corridor. Holmes ignored Helen's original bedroom and went directly into Julia's old room, where Helen was now sleeping. Watson described the room as simple and old-fashioned. It contained a small bed, a wooden chest of drawers, a dressing table, two chairs, and a carpet. Holmes carefully examined every part of the room without speaking. Eventually, he noticed a thick bell rope hanging beside the bed with its tassel lying on the pillow. Helen explained that it was supposed to ring for the housekeeper. Holmes asked when it had been installed. Helen replied that it had only been added 2 years earlier, shortly before Julia's death. She also admitted that neither she nor Julia had ever needed to use it because they usually did everything themselves. Holmes found this very strange. He pulled hard on the rope and immediately discovered that it was not connected to any bell at all. It was completely fake. Holmes called it a dummy bell rope. Looking more closely, he noticed that the rope hung directly beside a small ventilator in the wall. Holmes then made another surprising discovery. The ventilator did not open to the outside air as normal ventilators should. Instead, it connected Julia's bedroom directly with Dr. Roylott's bedroom next door. Helen explained that this ventilator had also been installed only about 2 years earlier at exactly the same time as the fake bell rope. Holmes became even more suspicious. He quietly remarked that it made no sense for a builder to install a ventilator between two bedrooms instead of connecting it to the outside air. Holmes now believed that these strange alterations must have been made for a secret purpose. Finally, Holmes entered Roylott's bedroom. The room was larger but simply finished. It contained a camp bed, a table, several technical books, wooden chairs, and a large iron safe. Holmes carefully examined everything. He asked Helen what was kept inside the safe. Helen replied that it contained only business papers, although she had not looked inside for many years. Holmes jokingly asked whether there was a cat inside. Helen laughed and replied that they did not own a cat, although they did have a cheetah and a baboon. Holmes then noticed something else that immediately caught his attention, a small saucer of milk sitting on top of the safe. Since there was no cat in the house, the presence of the milk seemed extremely strange. Holmes realized that this was another important clue in the mysterious case, although he did not yet explain its meaning. After carefully examining Roylott's room, Sherlock Holmes noticed several strange things. He saw a small saucer of milk kept on top of the iron safe. Miss Stoner explained that there was no cat in the house, only a cheetah and a baboon. Holmes knew that a cheetah was too large to drink only a little milk from such a small saucer, so he believed the milk was meant for some other animal. He then carefully examined a wooden chair. After looking at it closely with his magnifying glass, he seemed satisfied, as if he had found an important clue. Soon after that, he noticed another unusual object. It was a small dog whip hanging from the bed, but instead of being used normally, it had been tied into a loop. Watson thought it looked like an ordinary whip and did not understand why it had been tied that way. Holmes, however, immediately realized that this was not normal. He understood that the loop had a special purpose. Looking very serious, Holmes said that when an intelligent man uses his clever mind for crime, he becomes even more dangerous than an ordinary criminal. Holmes felt that he had now collected enough evidence to understand the mystery. He asked Miss Stoner if they could go outside and think about the case. Holmes looked more serious than Watson had ever seen him before. His face showed that he was deeply worried because he now believed that Miss Helen Stoner was in great danger. After walking silently around the lawn for some time, Holmes finally spoke to Miss Stoner. He told her that she must follow every instruction exactly as he gave it because her life depended upon it. Miss Stoner promised that she would obey him completely. Holmes then explained his plan. He told her that after Dr. Roylott returned home that evening. She should pretend that she had a headache and stay quietly inside her room. When her stepfather finally went to bed, she should open her bedroom shutters, place a lamp in the window as a signal for Holmes and Watson, and then quietly move into her old bedroom with everything she needed for the night. Holmes assured her that although repairs were going on, she could safely stay there for one night. Miss Stoner agreed. Holmes then revealed that he and Watson would secretly spend the entire night inside her bedroom. They wanted to discover the real cause of the strange whistle and solve the mystery of Julius Stoner's death. Miss Stoner guessed that Holmes had already solved the mystery in his mind. She begged him to tell her what had killed her sister. Holmes refused to explain because he wanted stronger proof before accusing anyone. Miss Stoner then asked if her sister had died only from fear. Holmes answered that he did not believe fear alone had caused her death. He believed there was a real physical cause behind it. Holmes then said goodbye and encouraged Miss Stoner to stay brave. He promised that if she followed his instructions exactly, he would remove the danger threatening her life. Holmes and Watson then rented rooms at the Crown Inn, which was opposite Stoke Moran. Their window gave them a clear view of the manor house. As evening came, they saw Dr. Roylott returning home. Even while entering the gate, he became extremely angry with the young driver because the heavy gate opened slowly. He shouted loudly and shook his fists in rage. This showed Watson once again how violent and bad-tempered drive Roylott really was. Soon a light appeared in one of the rooms of the manor, showing that Dr. Roylott had settled inside the house. While waiting in the inn, Holmes admitted that the coming night would be dangerous. He even asked Watson whether he really wanted to come with him. Watson immediately agreed because he wanted to help his friend. Holmes appreciated Watson's loyalty. Watson admitted that although he had seen all the clues inside the bedroom, he had not understood their importance. Holmes then explained how he had made his deductions. Miss Stoner had earlier said that her sister could smell drive Roylott's cigar smoke inside her bedroom. This made Holmes realize that there had to be some small opening connecting the two rooms. Therefore, before even visiting Stoke Moran, Holmes had guessed that he would find a ventilator between the bedrooms. Holmes then explained another important clue. The ventilator had been built at exactly the same time as the fake bell rope. Soon after these changes were made, Julius Stoner died. Holmes believed this could not be a coincidence. Watson still could not understand how these things were connected. Holmes pointed out another strange fact. The bed was firmly fixed to the floor, meaning it could never be moved. Therefore, every night the person sleeping there would always lie directly under the ventilator and beside the fake bell rope. Holmes believed this arrangement had been made deliberately. Watson slowly realized that Holmes believed someone had planned a terrible murder very carefully. Holmes agreed and said that an evil doctor was one of the most dangerous criminals because he possessed both knowledge and courage. Holmes warned Watson that the coming night would be frightening, but they would soon know the truth. At about 11 o'clock that night, Holmes and Watson finally saw the lamp appear in Miss Stoner's window. This was the signal they had been waiting for. They quietly left the inn after telling the landlord that they might spend the night with a friend. Under the cover of darkness, they crossed the broken walls surrounding the estate and carefully entered the grounds. Just before reaching the bedroom window, something suddenly jumped out from the bushes. It looked like a strange, ugly child running wildly across the lawn. Watson became terrified, but Holmes soon recognized it as Dr. Roylott's pet baboon. Watson then remembered that the doctor also owned a dangerous cheetah, which made him even more nervous. Holmes and Watson quietly entered Miss Stoner's bedroom through the window. Holmes immediately closed the shutters and whispered that they must not make even the smallest sound because Drive. Roylott could hear them through the ventilator. They sat in complete darkness. Holmes sat on the bed with a long cane beside him, while Watson sat quietly on a chair with his revolver ready. Holmes also kept matches and a candle nearby because he expected to need light very suddenly. They remained perfectly silent because Holmes believed that one small mistake could destroy their entire plan. The waiting became extremely difficult. The room was completely dark and silent. Watson could hear only the cries of night birds and once the frightening cry of the cheetah outside the window. The church clock struck every 15 minutes, making the long wait feel even longer. Finally, after several hours, a small light appeared for a moment through the ventilator. Immediately afterwards, Watson smelled burning oil and hot metal. This meant that someone in Dr. Roylott's room had opened a dark lantern. Everything became silent again. About half an hour later, they heard a soft hissing sound, like steam escaping from a kettle. Holmes instantly knew the danger had arrived. He quickly struck a match, lit the room, and began beating the fake bell rope violently with his cane while shouting to Watson to look carefully. Watson heard a low whistle but could not see what Holmes was attacking because the sudden light hurt his eyes. Holmes looked pale with horror while staring toward the ventilator. A few moments later, a terrible scream echoed through the night. It was filled with pain, fear, and anger. The scream was so loud that people in the nearby village woke up. Holmes calmly announced that everything was over. He picked up the lamp and led Watson into Drive. Roylott's bedroom. Inside, they found a shocking scene. Dr. Roylott was sitting completely still on a chair beside the open iron safe. A dark lantern stood on the table, shining directly toward the safe. Across his lap lay the same dog whip with the loop that Holmes had examined earlier. Dr. Roylott's eyes stared upward without moving. Around his head was what looked like a yellow band with brown spots. Holmes suddenly whispered, "The speckled band." At that very moment, the band began to move. It was not a piece of cloth at all. It was a deadly snake. Holmes immediately recognized it as a swamp adder, one of the deadliest snakes from India. The snake had bitten Drive. Roylott, and the poison had killed him within a few seconds. Holmes explained that the evil man had died by his own deadly plan. He carefully used the looped dog whip to catch the snake and safely locked it inside the iron safe. Miss Helen Stoner was rescued and taken safely to live with her aunt. The official investigation later decided that Dr. Roylott had died because of his dangerous pet. On the journey home, Holmes explained every part of the mystery to Watson. Holmes admitted that at first he had wrongly suspected the gypsies because Julia's last words had been, "the speckled band." Later he realized that no one could enter the bedroom through the door or window. Therefore, he carefully studied the ventilator, the fake bell rope, and the fixed bed. Holmes understood that the bell rope was not made to ring a bell. Instead, it acted like a bridge that allowed something to climb from the ventilator directly onto the bed. Since Dr. Roylott had lived in India and kept dangerous animals, Holmes suspected that the murderer had used a poisonous snake. Such a snake would leave almost no evidence except two tiny bite marks, which could easily be missed during an examination. Holmes also realized that the whistle Miss Stoner had heard every night was Dr. Roylott calling the trained snake back after sending it into the bedroom. The saucer of milk was used to reward the snake, and the looped whip helped Drive. Roylott safely handled it. The wooden chair showed that Dr. Roylott regularly stood on it to place the snake into the ventilator. The metallic sound Julia had heard before dying was the iron safe being quickly shut after the snake returned. Holmes finally explained what happened that night. When he heard the snake hissing, he immediately lit the match and struck the fake bell rope with his cane. The frightened snake became angry and quickly crawled back through the ventilator. Instead of attacking Miss Stoner, it bit the first person it saw, its own master, Drive. Roylott. Holmes admitted that his actions indirectly caused Roylott's death, but he felt no guilt because Roylott had been trying to murder innocent people. In the end, the cruel criminal was destroyed by the very evil plan that he had created himself, while Miss Helen Stoner was finally safe and free from danger. The Adventure of the Speckled Bend MCQS with answers. A. Who tells the story? A. Sherlock Holmes. B. Dr. Watson. C. Helen Stoner. D. Dr. Roylott. Answer B. Drive. Watson. Though. Who comes to Sherlock Holmes for help? A. Julius Stoner. B. Mrs. Farintosh. C. Helen Stoner. D. Miss Westphale. Answer C. Helen Stoner. 3. Where did Holmes and Watson live? A. 10 Downing Street. B. 221 B. Baker Street. C. Baker House. D. Scotland Yard. Answer B. 221 B. Baker Street. 4. In which year did Helen visit Holmes? A. 1881. B. 1882. C. 1883. D. 1885. Answer C. 1883. 5. Who was Helen's twin sister? A. Mary. B. Julia. C. Sarah. D. Alice. Answer B. Julia. 6. Who was Helen's stepfather? A. Dr. Watson. B. Sherlock Holmes. C. Dr. Grimesby Roylott. D. Major Stoner. Answer C. Drive. Grimesby Roylott. 7. Where did Helen live? A. London. B. Stoke Moran. C. Surrey Town. D. Reading. Answer B. Stoke Moran. 8. What was Dr. Roylott's profession? A. Lawyer. B. Doctor. C. Farmer. D. Teacher. Answer B. Doctor. 9. In which country had Roylott worked? A. France. B. India. C. Egypt. D. China. Answer B. India. Thus, why was Dr. Roylott sent to prison? A. Theft. B. Murder of his butler. C. Robbery. D. Fraud. Answer B. Murder of his butler. 11. What animals did Roylott keep? A. Lion and tiger. B. Horse and dog. C. Cheetah and baboon. D. Wolf and fox. Answer C. Cheetah and baboon. 12. Why did the sisters lock their bedroom doors? A. Because of thieves. B. Because of the cheetah and baboon. C. Because of ghosts. D. Because of servants. Answer B. Because of the cheetah and baboon. 13. What strange sound did Julia hear at night? A scream. B. A whistle. C. A bell. D. A cry. Answer B. A whistle. 14. What were Julia's last words? A. Save me. B. Call Holmes. C. The speckled bend. D. The snake. Answer C. The speckled bend. 15. What did Holmes notice in Helen's glove? A key. B. A railway ticket. C. A coin. D. A letter. Answer B. A railway ticket. 16. What did Holmes notice on Helen's wrist? A cut. B. Bruises. C. Burn marks. D. A tattoo. Answer B. Bruises. 17. Who caused the bruises? A. Julia. B. Watson. C. Dr. Roylott. D. Holmes. Answer C. Drive. Roylott. 18. Why did Holmes visit Doctor's Commons? A. To meet a lawyer. B. To examine the will. C. To buy a book. D. To meet Helen. Answer B. To examine the will. 19. Why did Drive Roylott not want Helen to marry? A. He disliked pussy. B. He would lose money. C. He hated marriage. D. She was too young. Answer B. He would lose money. B's. What was the name of Helen's fiancé? A. James Armitage. B. Percy Armitage. C. John Armitage. D. Henry Armitage. Answer B. Percy Armitage. 21. What unusual thing did Holmes find beside the bed? A. A knife. B. A fake bell rope. C. A chain. D. A key. Answer B. A fake bell rope. 22. The ventilator connected Julia's room with whose room? A. Helen's room. B. The kitchen. C. Dr. Roylott's room. D. The hall. Answer C. Drive Roylott's room. 23. What was fixed to the floor? A. Chair. B. Table. C. Bed. D. Cupboard. Answer C. Bed. 24. What was on top of the iron safe? A. Bread. B. Milk. C. Water. D. Fruit. Answer B. Milk. 25. What strange object did Holmes find hanging? A. Rope ladder. B. Dog whip with a loop. C. Chain. D. Belt. Answer B. Dog whip with a loop. 26. Where did Holmes and Watson spend the evening? A. A hotel. B. The Crown Inn. C. Helen's room. D. A railway station. Answer B. The Crown Inn. 27. What signal did Helen give Holmes? A. A whistle. B. A lamp in the window. C. A letter. D. A bell. Answer B. A lamp in the window. 28. Which animal frightened Watson outside? A. Cheetah. B. Baboon. C. Snake. D. Dog. Answer B. Baboon. 29. What did Holmes carry while waiting? A. A sword. B. A cane. C. A knife. D. A gun only. Answer B. A cane. 30. What came through the ventilator? A. A rat. B. A bird. C. A poisonous snake. D. A bat. Answer C. A poisonous snake. 31. What did Holmes do when he saw the snake? A. Shot it. B. Hit it with his cane. C. Ran away. D. Caught it by hand. Answer B. Hit it with his cane. 32. Who was bitten by the snake? A. Holmes. B. Watson. C. Helen. D. Dr. Roylott. Answer D. Drive Roylott. 33. What kind of snake was it? A. Cobra. B. Swamp adder. C. Python. D. Viper. Answer B. Swamp adder. 34. What did the whistle mean? A. Calling the snake back. B. Calling the cheetah. C. Calling the servants. D. Calling the gypsies. Answer A. Calling the snake back. 35. Why was the saucer of milk kept? A. For the cheetah. B. For the baboon. C. To reward the snake. D. For a cat. Answer C. To reward the snake. 36. Why was the chair important? A. It was broken. B. Dr. Roylott stood on it. C. It belonged to Julia. D. Holmes sat on it. Answer B. Drive Roylott stood on it. 37. What was the purpose of the fake bell rope? A. To ring a bell. B. To decorate the room. C. To help the snake climb down. D. To tie the bed. Answer C. To help the snake climb down. 38. What was the real meaning of the speckled band? A. Gypsies. B. A spotted snake. C. A scarf. D. A hat. Answer B. A spotted snake. 39. Who solved the mystery? A. Watson. B. Helen. C. Sherlock Holmes. D. Police. Answer C. Sherlock Holmes. 40. What is the main theme of the story? A. Love and friendship. B. Good defeats evil through intelligence. C. War and peace. D. Adventure at sea. Answer B. Good defeats evil through intelligence. 41. In which month did Helen visit Holmes? A. January. B. March. C. April. D. June. Answer C. April. 42. At what time did Holmes wake Watson? A. सुबह के 6 बजे. B. सुबह के 7:15 बजे. C. सुबह के 8 बजे. D. सुबह के 9 बजे. Answer B. सुबह के 7:15 बजे. 43. What color clothes was Helen wearing? A. White. B. Blue. C. Black. D. Green. Answer C. Black. 44. Why was Helen trembling? A. Because she was cold. B. Because of fear. C. Because she was sick. D. Because she was tired. Answer B. Because of fear. 45. Through whom did Helen hear about Holmes? A. Dr. Watson. B. Mrs. Farintosh. C. Inspector Lestrade. D. Julia. Answer B. Mrs. Farintosh. 46. Which famous case had Holmes solved for Mrs. Farintosh? A. The Blue Carbuncle. B. The Red-Headed Leak. C. The Opal Tiara case. D. The 5 orange pips. Answer C. The Opal Tiara case. 47. What was the name of Helen's aunt? A. Miss Mary. B. Miss Honoria Westphale. C. Miss Hudson. D. Miss Julia. Answer B. Miss Honoria Westphale. 48. Where did Helen's aunt live? A. Reading. B. Harrow. C. London. D. Surrey. Answer B. Harrow. 49. Julia became engaged to A. Doctor. B. Lawyer. C. Half-pay major of Marines. D. Farmer. Answer C. Half-pay major of Marines. 50. How long before her wedding did Julia die? A. 1 week. B. 2 weeks. C. 1 month. D. 2 months. Answer B. 2 weeks. 51. How many bedrooms were in the used part of the house? A. 2. B. 3. C. 4. D. 5. Answer B. 3. 52. Where did the bedroom windows face? A. The road. B. The garden. C. The lawn. D. The forest. Answer C. The lawn. 53. Why did Julia visit Helen on the last night? A. She was ill. B. She wanted to talk. C. She wanted money. D. She had a thief. Answer B. She wanted to talk. 54. Around what time did Julia hear the whistle? A. Midnight. B. रात के 1 बजे. C. सुबह के 3 बजे. D. सुबह के 5 बजे. Answer C. सुबह के 3 बजे. 55. What did Helen hear after the whistle? A scream. B. Metal clanging. C. A gunshot. D. A dog barking. Answer B. Metal clanging. 56. What did Julia have in her hand? A knife. B. A key. C. A burnt match and a matchbox. D. A letter. Answer C. A burnt match and a matchbox. 57. Why did Holmes think Julia lit a match? A. To light a candle. B. To see what frightened her. C. To read a letter. D. To call for help. Answer B. To see what frightened her. 58. Who examined Julia's death officially? A. Holmes. B. Watson. C. The county coroner. D. Lestrade. Answer C. The county coroner. 59. What was found in Julia's body? A. Poison. B. Knife wound. C. No poison or wounds. D. Bullet wound. Answer C. No poison or wounds. 60. Who did Helen think the speckled band referred to? A. The snake. B. The gypsies. C. The cheetah. D. The baboon. Answer B. The gypsies. Except, why was Helen moved into Julia's room? A. She wanted to change rooms. B. Her room was under repair. C. Julia asked her. D. She was ill. Answer B. Her room was under repair. Bassett. What woke Helen in Julia's room? A. A scream. B. A whistle. C. A knock. D. Thunder. Answer B. A whistle. Thereset. What did Holmes ask Helen to do that night? A. Leave the house forever. B. Sleep in Roylott's room. C. Open the shutters and place a lamp in the window. D. Call the police. Answer C. Open the shutters and place a lamp in the window. Chusett. Where did Holmes and Watson hide? A. In the garden. B. In Helen's bedroom. C. In the attic. D. In the kitchen. Answer B. In Helen's bedroom. Peasett. What did Holmes ask Watson to carry? A. A sword. B. A revolver. C. A stick. D. A rope. Answer B. A revolver. Chiasset. Which station did Holmes travel from? A. Paddington. B. Waterloo. C. Victoria. D. King's Cross. Answer B. Waterloo. Somerset. Which station was nearest Stoke Moran? A. Leatherhead. B. Reading. C. Crewe. D. Harrow. Answer A. Leatherhead. Urset. Why did Holmes pretend to be an architect? A. To buy the house. B. To avoid suspicion. C. To repair the roof. D. To meet workers. Answer B. To avoid suspicion. Unhattar. What did Holmes think about the repairs? A. They were necessary. B. They were unfinished. C. They were only an excuse. D. They were expensive. Answer C. They were only an excuse. Sattar. What was inside the iron safe? A. Gold. B. Business papers and later the snake. C. Food. D. Clothes. Answer B. Business papers and later the snake. 71. Which object was not connected to anything? A. Ventilator. B. Bell rope. C. Window. D. Chair. Answer B. Bell rope. Behtar. The ventilator opened into A. The garden. B. The roof. C. Dr. Roylott's room. D. The hallway. Answer C. Drive. Roylott's room. 73. What did Holmes use to examine the room closely? A. Telescope. B. Microscope. C. Magnifying glass. D. Camera. Answer C. Magnifying glass. 74. What smell came through the ventilator at night? A. Perfume. B. Burning oil and hot metal. C. Smoke from firewood. D. Flowers. Answer B. Burning oil and hot metal. 75. What sound did Watson hear before Holmes lit the match? A. A whistle only. B. A hiss like steam. C. Footsteps. D. Thunder. Answer B. A hiss like steam. 76. Why did Holmes strike the bell rope? A. To ring the bell. B. To frighten the snake. C. To wake Helen. D. To break the rope. Answer B. To frighten the snake. 77. What happened after the snake returned? A. It escaped outside. B. It bit Drive. Roylott. C. It hid in the bed. D. It died. Answer B. It bit Drive. Roylott. 78. Where did Helen go after the case? A. London. B. Her aunt's house. C. India. D. Baker Street. Answer B. Her aunt's house. 79. Who explained the whole mystery at the end? A. Watson. B. Helen. C. Holmes. D. The police. Answer C. Holmes. C. What lesson does the story teach? A. Crime always brings success. B. Intelligence and careful observation solve mysteries, and evil is punished. C. Money is the most important thing. D. Wild animals should be kept as pets. Answer B. Intelligence and careful observation solve mysteries, and evil is punished.